As radiation levels spike and mutated wildlife washes ashore, government and media promote delusion. Radiation hotspots are popping up around the United States, thousands of percentages higher than background radiation. Mutated wildlife is being found dead on the same West Coast beaches, where increased radiation levels have been documented by independent researchers, and the Fukushima TEPCO plant workers have been caught using duct tape to fix their nuclear equipment. But according to both the Japanese and United States governments, these events mean absolutely nothing. In fact, you must be a conspiracy theorist if you fail to believe the official story that it was likely red-painted utensils that led to a spike in documented radiation levels along the California coast. Yes, the government actually offered this up as an official answer. And you must absolutely be a conspiracy theorist if you have the gall to actually look back to late 2011, when researchers presented their findings regarding the impending wave of Fukushima radiation that was already being recorded within the country. Information going back to 2011 shows that scientists were already concerned about an increase in radiation levels and the overall fallout from the dilapidated Fukushima plant. We can even go back to the declaration by scientist Marco Kaltofen of the Worcester Polytechnic Institute that radioactive hot particles had been found at 2 out of the 3 radiation monitoring stations in Boston. As you are likely aware, hot particles are microscopic pieces of radioactive material that can absolutely wreak havoc on your body via the deliverance of concentrated radiation. And these particles, according to Kaltofen, were already been found in Boston as far back as 2011. Now enter a new flurry of stories that have seemingly been popping up one after another as radiation levels are continually being monitored around the nation, namely the West Coast, where the bulk of Fukushima-linked scenarios have been documented. In what sounds like an apocalyptic plot for the latest thriller film, we have mutated whales now washing up dead on the West Coast in the first ever documented case of conjoined gray whale calves. We even have elevated radiation readings as far away as St. Louis, Missouri. Coincidentally, of course, this is happening at the same time that radiation hotspots, exceeding a 1,400% increase over normal levels, are being reported by researchers. It's even happening at the same time that similar 500% increases have been disregarded by government officials who admit they have no idea what's going on but fervently deny any connection to Fukushima in any capacity whatsoever. In fact, that has always been the mantra of these government health officials: we have no idea what's really going on, but it's definitely not Fukushima. Because just as the Japanese government has assured its citizens that Fukushima is perfectly safe and poses no real threat to human health, while secretly reviewing studies that reveal the plant released massively more radiation and admitted and led to 78% of the radioactive waste being dumped into the Pacific Ocean, the United States government would much rather silently purchase 14 million doses of potassium iodide than tell you that there may be some cause for concern.
Implemented in October 2013, Japan's new secrecy law will incriminate and imprison any Japanese for speaking of their illnesses, deaths, and losses from Fukushima's ongoing radiation release. Ever since the Fukushima Daiichi triple meltdown of March 2011, we have not received any honest reports coming out of Japan's government or TEPCO, and the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, has the whole world and all scientists silenced on the actual truth about this worldwide nuclear event. We get lies after lies and cover-ups through the mainstream media, so the majority of the people worldwide have no idea about Fukushima's ongoing deadly release of lethal, man-made, weapons-grade radiation. They deny that it even happened. They say it is anything else other than radiation causing our illnesses and cancers. They blame it on cigarettes, alcohol, asbestos, all the things they have been blaming over the years. But these things are becoming less and less in the world. Less people are smoking. Asbestos is being removed from existence. Alcohol use is about the same. So how could they be to blame for the acceleration and now higher statistics in cancer rates, heart attacks, and birth deformities worldwide?
1 out of every 2 men and 1 out of every 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer.
You are being lied to, and they are laughing at you as you follow along with and believe in their lies. Einstein once said, "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything." Try asking someone you work with if they know the current news on Fukushima, and most will give you a blank look saying something like, "What is Fukushima? Never heard of it." Or if they do know about it, their reply will be something like, "Oh yeah, that happened a few years ago. Those poor people over there." The news media has the world living in a false, numb, and dangerous fantasy. And the people don't want you to rip them out of that imaginary world they live in. Those of us that do speak the truth are labeled conspiracy theorists. But this is not a conspiracy, folks. I'm sorry to tell you. This is the real deal.
We were told 3 partial meltdowns, don't worry about it. Now we know it was 100% core melt in all 3 reactors.
Japan is, by orders of magnitude, many times worse than Chernobyl. Never in my life did I think that 6 nuclear reactors would be at risk.
Well, TEPCO is like the little Dutch boy. All of a sudden we have cracks in the dike. You put a finger here, you put a finger there, and all of a sudden new leaks start to occur, and they're overwhelmed. Literally making it up as they go along. We're in totally uncharted territories. You get any nuclear engineering book, look at the last chapter, and this scenario is not contained in the last chapter of any nuclear engineering textbook on the planet Earth. So they're making it up as they go along, and we are the guinea pigs for this science experiment that's taking place.
All radiation is damaging. It's cumulative. Each dose you get adds to your risk of getting cancer.
Within days of the Fukushima Daiichi catastrophe beginning, we were getting fallout coming down in rain in the United States, not in insignificant quantities. And also, of course, the seafood, not only does the ocean's currents bring the radioactivity this way, but also the sea life itself, the bluefin tuna, migrated from Japan to North America and carried the radioactive cesium in its flesh over here.
Wow, not a good time to be eating tuna.
The food chain remains contaminated for hundreds or thousands of years, and we'll start seeing lung cancer and leukemia, I think 2 to 5 years from now. And then solid cancers will start appearing 15 to 60, 70 years later. So the ace up the sleeve of the nuclear industry is the incubation time for cancer. It takes a long time for cancers to develop once you have inhaled or been exposed to these radioactive elements. And no cancer identifies its origin. And so there is already a level of cancer in society, but it's going to increase dramatically.
The problem is not really under control.
It will not be under control for, it's estimated, between 40 and 100 years from now.
There's no way to clean it up. They say 40 years, but they can't clean it up. They can't.
And the site's still unstable and vulnerable to natural disasters.
If there is another earthquake, a serious one, 6, 7, 8 or 9 magnitude, that would rattle all these 1,060 tanks. It would rattle the damaged cores, spent fuel, whose structures have already weakened. Yes. That's a potential very, very serious threat.
Approximately 300 tons of water was filtering through the site until early this month, becoming laced with radioactive materials and then seeping into the sea. Another factor is the ever-increasing amount of water accumulating inside damaged infrastructure. Once it makes its way into reactor buildings, it mixes with radioactive isotopes. For months, TEPCO workers have been pumping up 400 tons of water every day and storing it in tanks on site.
There's 1,060 tanks, stainless steel water tanks, that are holding the water, which they keep pumping into the damaged reactors and the spent fuel storage pools.
From the air, the scale of the problems at Fukushima have become clear. The growing mass of storage tanks now dwarfs the plant itself. More than 1 million tons of highly radioactive water is now stored here.
But the tanks have been hastily built.
They're made of steel plates, bolted together, rather than welded. Last week, workers detected a major leak in one of those tanks. About 300 tons of water escaped, releasing several quadrillion becquerels of radioactive particles.
Experts have often pointed out how vulnerable they are to damage.
The tanks, though, have been put together very quickly. There's no guarantee they'll last. Their seals are made of rubber, and the joints and bolts are corroding, and they may last not more than 5 years.
So the tank farm has grown dramatically, and it's on the hill. Of course, the problem is, because it's on the hill, the water flows down, and if there's an earthquake, all of these pipes are held together with plastic piping. Not much different than what you've got on a swimming pool. So the plastic pipe will snap, and that water will just run right down that roadway directly into the ocean.
And how long the contamination has been leaking into the water?
Very likely since the explosions and the meltdown at Fukushima Daiichi in March of 2011.
Wow, that is quite a long time. Now, how much and what sort of radiation is leaking into the Pacific? I know there's all different types, so if you can explain that in a little detail.
Well, clearly what we've seen now is the movement of radioactive hydrogen, tritium, which is a mobile radioactive isotope, but clearly radioactive cesium, 134, 137, strontium-90. We're seeing a full range of radioactive contaminants now moving, which indicate that the damaged cores of these reactors, the meltdowns themselves, are now contributing to the contamination of the Pacific Ocean and groundwater that's moving at about a rate of 300 to 400 metric tons per day. So
the radiation has been leaking into the water and polluting the fish continuously for the last 2 years.
Radioactive iodine-129, its half-life is 17 million years, plus strontium, plus cesium, plus tritium, and I could go on and on and on. If it gets into the sea, the algae concentrated hundreds of times, then the crustaceans concentrated hundreds of times, and the little fish, then the big fish, they're nice. Because we stand on the apex of the food chain. You can't taste these radioactive elements, you can't see them, and you can't smell them. They're silent.
This graphic shows the gradual contamination of the Pacific Ocean due to leaks of radioactive water from the crippled Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan. The simulation, which was run by a German Marine Research Institute, shows the entire Pacific waters being polluted by radioactive water in just 6 years.
The fuel core of Unit 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. More than 1,500 fuel rods sit in a damaged storage pool 30 meters above ground.
Yeah, the amount of radioactivity in the rods themselves is about 14,000 times that of the Hiroshima bomb.
We are dealing with diabolical energy. E equals mc squared. It's the energy that blows up nuclear bombs. Einstein said, nuclear power is a hell of a way to boil water.
They need to remove those fuel rods from the pool because if there's another earthquake, building 4 would go down probably, and all those fuel rods would be exposed to the air and they would burn, and they would release 10 times more radiation or cesium than was released at Chernobyl. Huge amounts, and pollute much of Japan and the Northern Hemisphere. So We're in a nuclear crisis at the moment.
If there's another earthquake and Building 4 collapses, which contains the cooling pool with fresh fuel, I'm going to evacuate my family from Boston.
So they've put a crane on top of that building, which is shaky anyway. And they're going to lift the fuel assemblies out one by one with the crane, and it will be done manually. Normally, those rods are removed by computer control with millimetres to spare. It's a very delicate operation.
The fuel rods must be kept submerged and must not touch each other or break. Nuclear experts warn any mishaps could cause an explosion many times worse than that one here in March 2011.
Unprecedented emergency statewide fishing closures enacted in Pacific Northwest. We've never had to do anything like this. Very alarming. Mass die-offs linked to disease outbreak. Nearly 100% infection rate in some areas. Rotting gills, distended bellies. NOAA says it's a head-scratcher. The emergency rules take effect on Saturday. This is July 16th news. Restricting fishing in Oregon streams and rivers for the first time ever. Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife announces it's taking drastic measures. They have never had to do this before. They say we're starting to see fish kills in more places than we typically do, and this is a pretty extreme set of conditions. In July 17th today, Washington Fish and Wildlife Department officials are enacting fishing restrictions involving 38 rivers. Emergency rules take effect tomorrow, Saturday.